Hi there, I'm Karen Strang Allen, a love and empowerment coach for single women, and I wanted to jump on here today for another fireside chat to talk about the idea of toxic people. How do you know whether you should end a relationship with somebody who seems to be toxic? And, how do we even know when somebody is toxic or not? So it's interesting as a coach. I see one of two things happening on this topic. I either see repeatedly people who are keeping themselves in toxic relationships far too long, or on the other end of the spectrum, I see people who label everybody as toxic and just end one relationship after another without actually trying to work anything out. And neither end of the spectrum is really where you want to be. So there is a healthy middle ground here, and we're going to get to the bottom of that today. So first, I want to start by actually defining what toxic means and also differentiating between toxic behavior and a truly toxic person. So first of all, toxic basically just means unhealthy and harmful. And there's a second part to the definition, which is also pervasive. So this is where I'm getting into the difference between behavior and the human being, because the truth is everybody has toxic behaviors sometimes. If you can honestly tell me that you have never yelled or called somebody a name or overpowered somebody with your opinion, or insisted that you have your way at the expense of somebody else, or not respected somebody's boundaries, or on the other end of things, given somebody the silent treatment, not answered somebody, walked away without explanation, been passive aggressive, gossiped about somebody, triangulated, meaning you talked to somebody else about being bothered by somebody without actually talking to that person about it. These are common enough behaviors in relationships that I can pretty much hazard a guess that just about everybody has done some of them at some point. So having some toxic behaviors doesn't make you a toxic person. It makes you human with some behaviors that you need to clean up. When somebody is truly a toxic person, it's somebody who is committing these behaviors on a very regular basis with little or no concern for other people's boundaries or feelings, even once they've expressed those to them. That's when a person you could actually say is toxic. And it's really important to not make the mistake of labeling everybody as toxic just because they make a mistake or they do something wrong. It's also important to not make the mistake of giving somebody so much goodwill that you constantly excuse their behavior, right? So it's really a question of amount, of degree, and how often is this happening and how long is it happening, and also how bad is it. So if somebody is physically or sexually abusing you, or being extremely emotionally and mentally abusive, I don't think there's a whole lot of wiggle room for that. I think those are behaviors that are so toxic and so damaging to somebody that if it's happening to you, you just need to get out and end that relationship and get away from that person. It's not your job to try to fix that person or help them to change. It's your job to protect yourself. On the other hand, if you're in a reasonably healthy relationship with a reasonably healthy person and they make some mistakes and they cross a line with you, the first thing you should be doing isn't to end the relationship or just walk away or label them as toxic. That can actually be a bit of a cop out for people who have difficulty using their voice and being assertive and expressing themselves and setting boundaries. So your growth point here, if this is you, is to learn how to be more assertive, how to express yourself, how to set healthy boundaries in your relationship so that when somebody does something that isn't okay with you, you're able to actually tell them that. And the only way to know, is this a relationship you can continue or not, is expressing yourself, what you need and want, what's okay and not okay with you, asking for behavior change and seeing if the person actually can, seeing if they respect your boundaries enough and care about your feelings enough that they're able to address what isn't working for you. That's when you can tell, okay, is this relationship salvageable, or not. So again, if they make a smaller mistake a few times, that's something where you need to communicate and establish healthy boundaries and see if they can respond. And yeah, that requires vulnerability. And that's why a lot of people don't do it. It's why many people would rather end relationships with people because it seems easier than having to actually have an awkward, difficult conversation and say what you need and want and see if the other person cares about you enough to respond, because your fear is that they won't. Right. And that's why so many people avoid these conversations. But if you're continually avoiding the conversations, your relationships are never going to develop the depth of intimacy and closeness and connection that you're wanting. Or you're going to end up very alone if you cut everybody out of your life the second they do something you don't like. So if that's you, your invitation is to learn how to express yourself better. And if you're on the other side of the spectrum and you put up with way too much toxic behavior, and you're constantly being, really physically and psychologically damaged by someone, then you're staying too long. And in either case, it can help you to get some support to work through these situations. So feel free to reach out if you're needing some help. I hope this has been helpful, and I'm wishing you a really great week and weekend. Bye for now.